Good morning and welcome to Connection Time. This is Pastor Arnie, and today we're going to look at two verses, probably two of the most well-known verses in the Bible, Proverbs 3 verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Now, the title of this devotional is A Most Trustworthy God. Have you ever had a relationship with someone who is faithful? You knew you could depend on that person to do whatever he or she said. You learned that their word was completely trustworthy. If he said he would call you, he would. If he said he'd be somewhere at a certain time, he'd be there. In fact, if he was late, you began to wonder if he had an accident because it was so contrary to his nature. Isn't it great to have family and friends who are faithful? Our God is faithful. He's faithful to fulfill every promise in his word. And sometimes we may think that God is unfaithful because it appears he has not fulfilled the desire that we have. Sometimes we think he's not faithful because of a crisis event that seems to say God is unfaithful. We must remember that God is more concerned about accomplishing his ultimate purpose in the life of every believer than giving us the desires of our heart. And sometimes this process may take us through some difficult times. The Bible is full of all accounts of God's faithfulness that was often preceded by hardship. We know about how he brought Joseph out of slavery to be used greatly in a nation. He delivered the Israelites from Egypt and brought them into the promised land. He gave Abraham the son of promise late in his life, and he delivered David from his enemies and made him a king. In story upon story, we learn of God's faithfulness. Have you ever trusted someone or believed in someone only to feel betrayed or disappointed by them? In Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, the word trust is the Old Testament word for the New Testament words faith and believe. And God expects his people to trust him. He is a trustworthy God. We were created to live our lives in dependence on him. Our knowledge is incomplete, our wisdom is inadequate, our power is ineffective. Therefore, we need our Creator. We sin when we fail to trust God. Verses 5 and 6 in Proverbs 3 tell us how we are to trust God. We're to trust him entirely. He said God wants us to trust him with all our heart. We must live a life of dependence on God because that is the way to live. That means trusting him in everything from our salvation to our physical, financial, mental, and social needs. That means trusting him with our families, trusting him with our finances, trusting him with our life partner, finding a life partner, or with our marriage, trusting him in everything. We are also, because in Matthew chapter 6, we read about how in verses 25 to 32, we read about how God cares for everything from the plants, the flowers, the birds, everything. They don't have to worry about anything. He cares a lot more for us than he does for them. And so, we show that we don't trust him. We don't have faith when we worry about things. With that in mind, we should trust God about our jobs, about our work. In this day where you have a lot of people have lost their jobs because of the pandemic, there's a lot of people who are underemployed. They may just be working a few hours a week. We really need to keep trusting God. We can't give up. We have to keep holding on. He will guide you. He will lead you. He will open up doors for you. He will provide for you even when these things are happening, while these things are happening, until he leads you into the right situation. We must trust God with our relationships, with our friendships. People are lonely now, especially during this isolation period where you're not able to interact with your family and friends the way you would like to. It's taken a toll on your mental health. It's taken a toll on, you just get depressed. and there are people who are just having a difficult time handling it. If you're not in that category, and if you perchance think of someone who just pops into your mind one day, give them a call, send them a text, just reach out to them, because that may be the moment. You may just be the person who just reach out to that person at the right time, just when they really need encouragement. So I want to encourage you to do that. We can also trust God with our abilities. He gave them to us, and He'll help us to develop them. He will trust Him with our weaknesses, because He knows our weaknesses, and He can help us to be strong in times when we need to be. Trust Him with our health. Yeah, we're all concerned about the pandemic and about catching this deadly virus, but we need to do what we're supposed to do to protect ourselves and trust God. Also, trust God with your accomplishments. Anything that you accomplish is not on your own. Yeah, you put a lot of effort into it, but trust God, because He's the one who gave us the abilities. Trust God with our future. He knows the future, and He knows what's best for us, and He can lead us. He will walk with us into our future. Now, the other thing that we're exhorted to trust God, how we're exhorted to trust God in verse 5 of Proverbs chapter 3, is to trust Him exclusively. He doesn't want us to depend on our own understanding, because you know what? That is flawed by sin. God is omniscient. He truly knows everything from beginning to the end. He even knows how much hair we have in our heads, or how much we don't have. So follow His leading from His word. Prayer and godly counsel will also help you to trust Him exclusively. And we're also asked to trust Him uniformly. Trust Him uniformly means in everything, in all we do, in every decision, we're to trust His wisdom. Not just with the big things, but also with the little things. We should trust more and worry less. Show more faith and less fear. Let's face it, the Lord knows what's best for us so much more than we know ourselves. He knows future events and how that will affect our life. So we need to trust Him in everything. Now, why do we find it difficult to trust God in all areas of our lives? And it's because of our need for control, our need for instant gratification, our impatience. We can't wait. And our need to help God solve our problems. Yeah, you give your problems to God, but you keep going back and putting your fingers in there and trying to help Him to solve the problem because He's taking too long and you can't wait. No, we need to trust God. Leave the thing with Him and let Him deal with it. Okay? Think about this question. In what area do you need to let go and let God work? In what area do you need to let go and let God work? What do you do when you pray and ask God for relief in a pretty bad situation, and it seems as though He's not there and He's not ready to give you an answer to your prayer, not in the time frame that you're looking for? In that case, just keep remembering God is in control. Keep trusting Him. Keep trusting Him. Think about Abraham. Abraham was a pretty old guy when God commanded him to leave and go. He commanded him to leave his country, his father's household. And he commanded Abraham to leave everything that he held dear, that in which he found his security. And yeah, trusting God can be a great adventure. He may initially ask us to give up everything we hold near and dear to us, everything we find our security in, just for the sake of following Him. Okay? Like in Abraham's case, He told him to leave his country, his people, his father's household, everything that made him feel secure. That was a major exercise, because remember, Abraham was not a young guy. He was an old fellow. We are creatures of comfort, and change is hard because it often threatens all we have become and have built for ourselves to remain secure. God knows that this dependence on ourselves is ultimately destructive, and deep down we know it, so He calls us to leave. He calls us to leave. So He also told Abraham to go to a place that He would show him. Now, this wasn't before the days of GPS, of course. So Abraham couldn't just plug something into his phone or his GPS and just get going. No, he had to wait on God to direct him. And of course, this would have made Abraham anxious, mystified, uneasy, where am I going? And I'm an old boy, suppose something happens to me. But Abraham is being invited somewhere where God had already been. Abraham was going somewhere where God had already been. And remember this, God never leads us where He has not already been. He's not going to put us out there, to flounder. He has been there. He's going to continue being with us. Okay, so when Abraham was obedient and he did go, God gave him much more than he ever dreamt of. If God is stirring your heart, maybe he's preparing you for an adventure. Are you being disrupted in any way that you never expected but needed? What keeps you from abandoning yourself to the Lord and crying, Lord, please take control of my life. Please take control of my life. If you're hearing this and you're a believer and you're trying to run your life yourself, stop struggling and give God control of your life. And if you're listening and you haven't really come to personal faith and trust in Jesus, you don't really have a relationship with him at this time, and you want to turn over your life to him, okay, do that so he can control you and become Lord of your life. Okay, do that. Don't wait. Don't wait. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy this and you feel there's someone who you can share it with, pass it on, and stay safe, and God bless you. Thank you.